The sun was barely climbing over the jagged peaks when Cade's boots crunched over the frost-hardened earth. His hand hovered over the grip of his revolver, eyes scanning the narrow canyon. Every shadow seemed alive, and the wind whispered danger that had nothing to do with the morning chill. Dalton was used to solitude, a lone rider in a land that rewarded caution with survival. Yet today, the air carried an unfamiliar tension. A sharp metallic snap echoed from the ravine below, followed by a strangled scream. Dalton froze, instinct taking over before thought. He ran toward the sound, descending the rocky slope, with the agility of a man who had faced more death than most could imagine. The scream had been human and terrified. Peering over the edge, he saw her, a young Apache woman caught in a cruel bear trap. Blood trickled down her ankle, and her face twisted in pain and fear. The trap's teeth had embedded deep, and every movement she made tightened its grip. Around her, the snow was disturbed by signs of other hunters, humans, not beasts, who had laid the trap with calculated malice. Dalton's jaw clenched. He hated the hunters who preyed on others for profit, but this was personal. He knelt beside her, examining the trap, feeling the pulse of danger radiating from it like fire. "Hold still," he murmured, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through his veins. The trap hissed as he worked, the cold metal biting into her flesh. Dalton cursed under his breath, improvising with his knife and leather straps. Sweat and blood mingled as he pried the trap open, his heart hammering. Finally, with one decisive twist, the jaws released. She fell into his arms, trembling, her dark eyes wide with disbelief. "You saved me," she whispered, her voice weak but grateful. Dalton nodded, lifting her gently. "It's not over yet. You're not safe." They retreated up the canyon, every step alert to the sounds of pursuit. Dalton knew the hunters would not let go easily. But as he carried her over the rugged terrain, something shifted in him. He had always walked alone, indifferent to attachments or obligations. Yet holding this stranger, he felt a spark of purpose that was foreign and frightening. Little did he know, this rescue was not just a fleeting act of heroism. It was a rope pulling him into a world he had no understanding of, a world of ancient laws, tribal honor, and a destiny that would demand everything from him. Courage, loyalty, and a willingness to fight not just for himself, but for another people entirely. By nightfall, Dalton found a safe ridge to rest, his fire casting shadows that danced like ghosts over the canyon walls. The Apache woman, wrapped in his coat, spoke for the first time about her name. Kiona. Her gratitude was clear, but so was her fear. "They will come for me," she said softly. Dalton's eyes met hers, and in that quiet, frost-bitten night, he realized that life would never be the same. The first light of dawn painted the canyon in shades of gold and crimson. Dalton wrapped Kiona tighter in his coat as he led her through a labyrinth of rocky gullies. Every sound, every rustle of the wind through the pines set his nerves on edge. He had saved her life, but he knew hunters, cruel and relentless, would not give up easily. Survival now meant more than caution, it demanded cunning. Kiona limped beside him, her strength fragile but determined. "We must reach my people," she said, each word careful, measured. Dalton listened. He had spent years wandering these lands alone, trusting only the rhythm of his horse and the feel of the terrain beneath his boots. Now the pulse of someone else's fear and hope thrummed alongside his own. By midday, they reached a ridge overlooking a forested valley. Smoke rose in curling spirals from small clearings below, signs of life and civilization. Dalton's hand rested on the hilt of his revolver, eyes scanning for hunters. Kiona's gaze was fixed on the valley, her lips tight with worry. "We are close," she whispered. "But they will test you." "Test me?" Dalton raised an eyebrow, uncertainty creeping into his voice. Kiona's eyes glimmered with resolve. My people live by laws older than your world. A stranger who enters our midst is measured in honor, courage, and respect. Only then can you stand among us. Dalton absorbed the words, feeling the weight of their meaning. He was no stranger to conflict, but this was different. This was a world of ritual, of loyalty, of consequences far beyond gunfire. He looked at Kiona, wounded yet unbowed, and felt a strange commitment knotting itself around his chest. As they descended into the valley, the sounds of drums and chants echoed faintly through the trees. Dalton's pulse quickened. This was not just a rescue. This was the beginning of a trial he had not asked for, one that would bind him to people and a way of life he could barely imagine. Every step toward the camp felt like stepping onto a stage, where the stakes were invisible yet deadly. The Apache village was a tapestry of color and movement. Huts built from earth and wood clustered around central fires. Warriors practicing with spears and bows. Children darting between them with laughter and shouts. Dalton's eyes swept over the scene, taking in the unfamiliar beauty and the undercurrent of tension. Every glance from a villager was a question, every whisper a silent assessment. Kiona led him to the edge of the central gathering, where the elders and the chief waited. The chief, tall and imposing, his face lined with years of leadership and battle, studied Dalton with a piercing gaze. Dalton felt a shiver, not from cold, but from recognition that he was under judgment. You saved Kiona, the chief said, voice deep and resonant, carrying authority that silenced the surrounding crowd. But saving a life is not enough. To stay among us, you must prove your courage, your loyalty, and your understanding of our ways. Dalton nodded, though unease churned in his stomach. I will do what is required. The chief's gaze hardened. Tomorrow you will undergo the rite of courage. You will face the forest, alone, with only your wits and your will. You will encounter trials, traps, predators, and spirits of the land. Succeed, and you may earn your place. Fail, and you leave as a stranger. Dalton's jaw tightened. He had faced danger countless times, but nothing like this, nothing that demanded not just survival, but the acceptance of an entire culture. He looked at Kiona, who offered a small nod of encouragement. Her trust was a weight heavier than any gun or blade. As night fell over the village, Dalton sat by a small fire, planning his approach. The forest beyond the village loomed dark and silent, filled with unknown challenges. Yet for the first time in his life, Dalton felt a sense of purpose he could not ignore. He would face whatever lay ahead, not as a lone wanderer, but as someone bound to another life, another people. And in that bond, perhaps he would find a home he never thought he wanted. Dawn had barely broken when Dalton stepped into the dense forest, Kiona's words still echoing in his mind. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches tangled, shadows crawling across the moss-covered ground. Each step was a test roots threatened to trip him. Hidden pits lay beneath fallen leaves, and the distant howl of wolves reminded him he was far from safe. The forest was alive in ways he had never known. Every rustle, every snap of a twig demanded vigilance. Dalton's hand instinctively brushed against the revolver at his hip. Though he knew this trial demanded more than firearms. It demanded cunning, patience, and respect for forces he had always dismissed. Suddenly, a faint groan pierced the morning air. Dalton froze, listening. The sound was human, but weak, muffled, almost lost among the whispering leaves. He followed it cautiously, weaving through the undergrowth. A trap! His heart raced as he spotted the iron teeth glinting beneath the foliage. A cruel echo of the one that had ensnared Kiona. Dalton disarmed it with precision, every movement calculated. The forest was testing him, mirroring the trials of the tribe itself. As he moved deeper, He felt a strange connection to the land, an unspoken bond with every tree, every stone, every creature watching from the shadows. Hours passed and the sun climbed higher. Dalton encountered more traps, remnants of hunters' cruelty, and faced predators stalking silently through the thickets. Each challenge sharpened his instincts but also taught him restraint. Killing was not the answer. Survival through understanding and strategy was. By late afternoon, he came upon a clearing with a small stream. Kneeling to drink, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. And then he heard it, a whisper, almost carried by the wind. Courage is measured in more than strength. Dalton's pulse quickened. Was it the forest, a spirit, or the tribe watching him, judging him even now? He pushed forward, each step heavier with anticipation, aware that the trials were only beginning. As Dalton ventured deeper into the forest, the tranquility was shattered by movement. Ahead, figures creeping through the trees, rifles glinting, hunters, the same men who had laid the trap for Kiona, drawn by the rumor of the lone cowboy who had dared to interfere. Dalton crouched low, blending with the shadows, mind racing. He had learned to read the forest, and now it became his ally. The hunters moved carelessly, confident and cruel. Dalton's revolver was ready. But he hesitated. He had to survive, yes. But he also had to prove something more than brute force. He needed strategy, patience, cunning. One by one, he used the forest itself against them, dislodging branches, leading them into natural traps, forcing missteps. Cries of surprise echoed, the balance of predator and prey shifting with every calculated move. Finally, the hunters realized they were being hunted. Dalton emerged from the shadows, eyes cold, yet controlled. They froze, unsure whether to attack or retreat. Dalton spoke softly, almost a warning. Leave this land, or face consequences you cannot imagine. The hunters faltered, fear creeping into their bravado, before retreating into the forest, leaving Dalton standing amid the quiet triumph. Breathing heavily, Dalton felt a surge of something unfamiliar, pride mixed with humility. The forest had tested him, and he had endured. But more than that, he had survived in a way that honored the lessons of Kiona's people. Courage tempered with respect, strength balanced by wisdom. As twilight descended, Dalton found a high ledge overlooking the forest. He could see the village lights in the distance, flickering like stars against the encroaching darkness. Kiona's voice echoed in his memory, reminding him that this was only the first trial, that greater challenges lay ahead, and that survival alone would not win him the trust of the tribe, or the heart of the woman he had come to protect. Dalton descended from the forest's edge, each step measured, alert, yet oddly aware of the rhythm of the village below. He felt every gaze from the villagers, every whisper, every sideways glance. It was as if the earth itself had eyes, and every living being was judging him. Kiona met him halfway, her expression calm but sharp, a mixture of relief and concern. "You returned," she said quietly, "and you survived." Dalton offered a faint nod, unsure how to respond. Words had never been his forte. Action was his language. The chief awaited them near the central fire, his expression unreadable. Dalton approached, shoulders straight, every instinct on high alert. The elders watched silently, their eyes like coals smoldering with assessment. "You faced the forest," the chief said, voice steady, carrying authority. "You faced the hunters who sought to harm our people. Yet to stay, to be considered among us, you must learn our ways, our laws, and the bond that ties us to these lands." Dalton listened, absorbing every word. This was more than survival. This was immersion, understanding, and respect. Kiona's presence was steadying, her gaze a reminder that he was no longer alone. He realized that his journey into the tribe was not just about proving courage. It was about proving loyalty, empathy, and a willingness to embrace a life that was entirely foreign. Later, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Kiona led Dalton through the village, explaining traditions and rituals. Dalton noticed how the villagers moved, how their lives were intertwined with the forest, the animals, and the land itself. Every action had meaning, every gesture rooted in centuries of heritage. He felt both humbled and awed. Yet beneath the lessons of culture, a shadow loomed, rumors of hunters and slavers returning, a threat that could shatter this fragile peace. Night fell, and the village settled under the glow of campfires. Dalton sat beside one, sharpening a knife, while Kiona kept a watchful eye on the horizon. He could sense the tension in the air, the silent warning carried by the wind. The hunters had not forgotten, and the whispers of traders and slavers hinted at a storm approaching. "Your people are brave," Dalton said softly, breaking the quiet. "But they are also vulnerable." Kiona glanced at him, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "That is why we are always ready. But even bravery has limits when the enemy is cruel and relentless. You have faced the first trial, Dalton. Now the real danger is coming, one that tests not just courage, but the heart and the choices you will make for us all." Dalton's thoughts raced. He had always relied on his weapons and instincts. But here, the challenges demanded more strategy, alliances, and understanding of customs he barely grasped. He felt the weight of responsibility settle on him, not just to Kiona, but to the entire tribe. Suddenly, a distant shout split the night. Dalton jumped to his feet, hand on his revolver, heart pounding. Smoke rose from the far edge of the forest. The hunters were moving again, closer than before. The tribe's warriors gathered, alert and tense. Dalton understood the reality now. The life he had been thrust into was dangerous, unforgiving, and irrevocable. For the first time in his life, Dalton felt a clarity he had never known. Survival was no longer enough. He would fight, not as a lone cowboy, but as a protector of Kiona, her people, and the fragile trust he had begun to earn. This night would be a test not only of skill, but of honor, and the bonds he was forming with a culture and a woman who had become indispensable to his existence. The first light of morning barely touched the village when Dalton noticed tracks in the soft earth near the ridge. They were fresh, deep, wide, and purposeful. Hunters, but not alone. He traced the trail with a practiced eye, noting the subtle signs: broken twigs, displaced rocks, and the occasional glint of metal catching the sun. Kiona joined him silently, her face tense. "They are coming," she whispered. "Slavers, hunting not just for our land but for our people." Dalton's jaw tightened. He had faced danger countless times, but this threat carried a weight unlike any he had known. These were not random predators. They were organized, ruthless, and deadly. He understood instantly that a confrontation would not be mere survival. It would be a battle for honor, for life, and for the very existence of the tribe he was beginning to care for. Dalton moved swiftly through the village, warning the elders and coordinating with the warriors. For the first time, he was not acting alone. Spears were sharpened, traps reinforced, and sentries posted along likely approaches. He observed the tribal training with growing respect, the precision of movement, the synchronization, the understanding of the land as both shield and weapon. Kiona stayed near him, guiding his understanding of the strategic points. Dalton noticed her composure, the confidence born from tradition and years of survival. He realized that while he had physical skill, she had knowledge and instinct, something he needed desperately if they were to survive the coming storm. By midday, the distant sound of hoofbeats and shouted commands confirmed Dalton's fears. The slavers had arrived, a small army of cruel men. their horses kicking up dust as they advanced. Dalton's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the responsibility weighing on him. The warriors assembled, faces painted, spears in hand, ready for a battle unlike any he had fought before. Dalton positioned himself at the forefront, his revolver drawn. But he quickly realized that gunfire alone would not protect the tribe. He coordinated with the warriors, using traps and terrain to their advantage, funneling the attackers into narrow paths where their numbers meant nothing. Spears struck, arrows flew, and chaos erupted. Amid the clash, Dalton moved like a shadow, defending Kiona, saving a young warrior from a trap, and countering every aggressive push with strategy rather than brute force. He felt a connection to the tribe growing stronger with every decision, every risk taken. These were people he now fought for, not as a mercenary or stranger, but as a protector. The battle raged for hours, the forest alive with the sounds of struggle. Dalton's mind raced, blending instinct, strategy, and a newfound understanding of the tribe's ways. By late afternoon, the slavers were repelled, wounded and confused, retreating back into the wilderness. As silence fell, Dalton looked around at the exhausted but triumphant villagers. The chief approached, eyes sharp but approving. "You have not only fought with skill, but with honor," he said. "The tribe sees your courage, Dalton Cade, but the threat is not over. More will come, and you must be ready not just to fight, but to live as one of us." Dalton met Kiona's eyes, the weight of what had just happened settling in. This was more than a victory, it was a turning point. He was no longer a lone wanderer. He had a place, a responsibility, and a future intertwined with this tribe, and the woman who had come to mean more to him than survival itself. The morning sun poured over the village, casting long shadows across the earth as Dalton walked beside Kiona. The events of the previous day weighed heavily on him, yet there was a quiet determination in his steps. He was no longer just a stranger. He had earned trust, but trust was fragile, and the tribe's eyes were always watching. Kiona led him to a small clearing, where a group of young warriors, trained with spears and bows. "You must understand our ways fully if you are to survive here," she said. Her voice was soft, yet each word carried the authority of someone born into these customs. Dalton nodded, absorbing every lesson, every gesture, every movement. He struggled at first. Spear in hand, he stumbled, misjudged distances, and almost fell. Kiona's patience never wavered. "Strength alone will not keep you alive," she instructed. "You must be precise, calm, and aware. The forest, the animals, the spirits, they all watch. You must honor them." Dalton began to see the rhythm of the tribe's life. Hunting was not just about killing. It was about understanding the land. Every meal, every fire, every movement had meaning. He learned how to read the wind, how to anticipate danger, how to move silently through the forest. It was a world completely foreign to him, yet he began to feel at home. As the day wore on, their lessons turned into conversations. Dalton glimpsed the depth of Kiona's strength, her quiet courage, and her unwavering loyalty to her people. Slowly, a bond formed, built on respect and shared survival. Yet beneath the warmth, a shadow lingered. The slavers were still out there, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. By evening, Dalton and Kiona walked to the ridge overlooking the valley. The fires of the village flickered below like tiny stars. Dalton's gaze lingered on her face, noticing how the light softened her features, how her eyes held both caution and hope. "They will come again," Dalton said, his voice low but steady. "We need to be ready." Kiona nodded. "And we will be. But not just with weapons. You must also understand our people, our ways. If you are to fight with us and protect us, Dalton felt the weight of her words. He had faced countless dangers alone, but now his strength alone was not enough. He needed to blend his skills with the wisdom of the tribe, to fight not just with arms, but with understanding. Night fell, and the village quieted. Dalton found himself beside Kiona near the central fire. They spoke little, yet every glance and gesture communicated what words could not. There was trust, and perhaps something more, a connection forged through trials, danger, and shared purpose. Suddenly, the distant echo of hooves reminded them that the world outside, the village, was far from safe. The slavers were still out there, plotting, searching for any weakness. Dalton's resolve hardened. Whatever came next, he would face it not as a lone cowboy, but as a part of this tribe, as Kiona's protector, and as someone willing to embrace a life he had never imagined. The night stretched on, filled with both anticipation and unspoken promise. Dalton understood something profound. He was no longer running from the past or the loneliness of the open plains. He was running toward a purpose, toward loyalty, and toward the life he had been thrust into, a life that demanded courage, honor, and an open heart. The dawn broke with a chilling stillness over the valley. Dalton stood on the ridge, scanning the forest below with a practiced eye. His instinct screamed that danger was near. The village had been vigilant, but the slavers were cunning. They had learned from their last defeat. Kiona joined him, silent, her eyes scanning the tree line. "They come in numbers this time," she whispered. Dalton nodded. He had faced danger before, but this was different. These men were organized, relentless, and they would stop at nothing. The responsibility of the village weighed heavily on him, but there was no hesitation in his movements. As the first glimmers of sunlight fell through the trees, the slavers struck. Smoke and dust filled the air as warriors shouted and arrows flew. Dalton acted instinctively, moving through the chaos, positioning the villagers strategically, using the terrain to their advantage. Traps were triggered, spears found their marks, and the forest itself seemed to fight alongside the tribe. But the slavers were brutal and merciless. Dalton witnessed his first serious injury among the villagers. A young warrior fell, clutching his side, and Dalton's chest tightened. Survival alone would not be enough. This battle required sacrifice, strategy, and courage beyond the ordinary. Dalton felt a fierce resolve hardening within him. He would not let these people fall. The morning mist clung to the valley as Dalton followed Kiona through the village. Days of training, fighting, and learning had changed him. He moved with a purpose that blended his old instincts with the rhythm of the tribe. Spear in hand, he mirrored the motions of the warriors. Each step deliberate, each stance mindful of both offense and defense. Kiona observed him closely, offering subtle guidance. "Your strength is good, but your heart must understand the land as we do," she instructed. Dalton nodded, realizing that survival was no longer about reflexes or weapons alone. It was about understanding the environment, the people, and the unseen forces that bound them. The chief called a council of elders. Dalton attended, absorbing the strategy discussions for defense and raids. He suggested adjustments, traps, lookout rotations, and patrol patterns. His knowledge of the outside world complemented the tribe's traditions. Slowly, his ideas were accepted, and Dalton began to feel a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. Yet, even as he integrated, Dalton remained aware of the lurking danger. The hunters and slavers were not idle. He could feel the tension in the air, a shadow creeping closer each day. The tribe trusted him, and that trust weighed heavily. One misstep could cost lives. But Dalton was determined. Every lesson, every strategy, every action was now tied to protecting the people who had accepted him. As evening fell, Dalton and Kiona walked to the outskirts of the village. The forest loomed, dark and silent, holding both mystery and threat. "They will come again," Kiona said softly. Stronger, more numerous. We must be ready. Dalton studied the terrain, noting natural choke points, hidden paths, and vantage points. He worked with the warriors to reinforce traps, scout patrol routes, and set early warning signals. Every detail mattered. He understood that survival would require not only bravery, but precision and foresight. That night, around the central fire, Dalton spoke to the young warriors. We fight not just with weapons, he said, his voice steady, but with knowledge, patience, and unity. We protect each other because our strength is only as great as the bond we share. Kiona watched him, eyes reflecting both pride and something deeper. Dalton felt the stirrings of a connection beyond mere duty, a bond built on trust, shared danger, and mutual respect. Yet, the distant rustle of the forest reminded them both that the world outside the village was unforgiving. Dalton knew the coming days would test him like never before. The slavers would strike again, and this time, their tactics would be more cunning, more brutal. But he also knew something crucial. He was no longer a lone cowboy wandering aimlessly. He had found a purpose, a family, and a woman who had become central to his world. Whatever the next battle brought, he would meet it head-on. As protector, warrior, and one of the tribe. Dawn broke over the valley, painting the village in pale gold. Dalton stood atop the ridge, surveying the terrain below. Every detail mattered. The placement of warriors, the traps laid along the forest edge, the narrow passages where the attackers could be funneled. Kiona stood beside him, her presence steadying, a silent reminder of what and who he was protecting. From the far edge of the trees, movement stirred. The slavers emerged, more numerous than before, their cruelty evident in every harsh glance and glinting weapon. Dalton's pulse quickened, but not from fear. This was a test of everything he had learned, of every bond he had formed with the tribe, and of his courage. Hold positions. Protect the village, Dalton shouted, his voice cutting through the tension. Warriors took their places, arrows nocked, spears ready. Dalton moved among them, offering guidance, adjusting strategies, and reminding them to trust the land and each other. He felt the tribe's heartbeat in sync, with his own unity forged in trials and preparation. The first wave struck suddenly, a furious surge through the narrow forest paths. Dalton met them head-on, using the terrain and traps to his advantage. Arrows flew, warriors moved with precision, and the sounds of battle echoed through the valley. Dalton's instincts and knowledge of both forest and enemy made him a formidable force, and the tribe fought beside him with renewed courage. Hours of brutal fighting passed. Dust and blood clouded the valley, cries of battle mixing with the war chants of the tribe. Dalton moved tirelessly, protecting Kiona, aiding injured warriors, and countering the slavers' tactics with cunning strategies. Every decision was a test of leadership, every moment a challenge of strength and heart. The slavers, despite their numbers, began to falter. Traps, spear formations, and Dalton's guidance turned the tide. Finally, the attackers, wounded and demoralized, retreated into the forest. The valley fell silent, save for the ragged breaths of survivors and the murmurs of grief for those lost. Dalton surveyed the battlefield, a mixture of pride and sorrow in his chest. The tribe had survived, but not without sacrifice. He met the chief's gaze, who nodded with a solemn respect. You fought not only with strength, Dalton Cade, but with honor. You are now truly one of us. Kiona approached, her eyes reflecting both relief and admiration. Dalton extended a hand to her, and for a brief moment, the weight of the battle lifted, replaced by a quiet recognition of trust and unity. He had found a place, a purpose, and a bond that would shape the rest of his life. As night fell over the village, fires burned brighter than ever, illuminating a tribe strengthened by trial. and a lone cowboy transformed into a protector, a warrior, and a man who had discovered his true home. The sun rose slowly over the valley, casting warm light on the village that had been tested by fire and blood. Dalton walked among the huts, observing the survivors tending to the wounded and rebuilding the places damaged in battle. The village was alive again, resilient and stronger than before. Dalton felt a deep sense of belonging he had never known, a quiet pride intertwined with humility. Kiona approached him, her steps confident, her gaze steady. "You have done more than survive," she said softly. "You have proven your loyalty, your courage, and your heart. The tribe sees you not as an outsider, but as one of us." Dalton's chest tightened. For years he had wandered alone, never answering to anyone, never belonging. Now he realized that his journey through danger, fear, and hardship had led him here, not just to survival, but to purpose. He had chosen this life, chosen to protect, to fight, and to embrace a world that once seemed foreign. The chief called a gathering at the central fire. The tribe assembled, warriors, elders, and families alike, their faces solemn yet hopeful. Dalton stepped forward, feeling the weight of their gaze, the responsibility now fully resting on his shoulders. "You have fought bravely," the chief announced. "You have proven your courage and your honor. Dalton Cade, you are now bound to our people, our laws, and our land." And Kiona, his eyes met hers with quiet authority. "She has chosen you as her companion, according to our tradition. Together, you will honor the tribe and protect its future." Dalton's heart raced. He looked at Kiona, who nodded with trust and unwavering strength. This was not a request, not a duty imposed. It was a bond forged through trials, respect, and shared courage. He understood that from this day forward, his life would be inseparable from theirs. The village celebrated quietly, the flames of the central fire reflecting in Dalton's eyes. He stood beside Kiona, feeling the weight of the past battles, the lives lost, and the victories won. The tribe had survived, and he had survived with them, not as a wanderer, but as protector, warrior, and family. Dalton and Kiona walked to the edge of the valley, looking out over the land that had been both cruel and generous. The forests, the rivers, and the mountains no longer seemed intimidating. They were home, a place to defend and cherish. Dalton felt a profound connection to every tree, every animal, every soul in the village. He took Kiona's hand, and for the first time, he allowed himself to embrace the future, no longer fleeing the past or wandering alone. Dalton Cade had found purpose, belonging, and love. The trials, the battles, and the harsh wilderness had shaped him into a man ready to accept responsibility, honor, and the life he had earned. As the stars emerged over the valley, Dalton and Kiona returned to the village, side by side. The tribe's fires burned bright, a testament to resilience, courage, and unity. Dalton knew the path ahead would have challenges, but for the first time, he faced them not as a solitary cowboy, but as a part of a community, a family, and a destiny he had embraced fully. The night was quiet, filled with promise. Dalton had found more than survival. He had found home, honor, and a place where his heart could finally rest.